The Pareto Principle, also known as the 80-20 rule, states that 80% of effects come from 20% of the causes. And this is the goal of this video. It is to give you an overview of the essential math concepts that matter the most in game development, the ones you'll encounter most of the time and can learn in a relatively faster time than the more sophisticated and rarely used topics. This video is not an explanation of how each topic works in detail, but more of an overview of why and when you need these concepts, some of its applications in real-world games, as well as examples you encounter while making your own games, and references to where you can learn it from that I personally used to learn myself. So, without further ado, let's get started. In almost every game you'll make, there will be a world in which your player, enemies, and that tree over there will all be part of, as they won't exist in void. And it will be useful for many cases to know where each of these entities are located in this world and how they are located relative to each other. In other words, it will be useful to know what are the world coordinates. And that's what coordinate systems allow us to do. They allow us to describe the location or rotation of something relative to an origin point and some number of axes that point to some directions. This origin point represents the center of the world, and the axes define which way is up, down, right, or left. For example, in a real engine, the x-axis, or the red arrow, represents the forward direction and determines how far forward or backward an actor is located. The y-axis, or the green arrow, determines how far to the left or to the right an actor is located, and the z-axis, the blue one, determines how far up or down an actor is located. Why coordinate systems matter is because they allow us to make sense of our space. If you have ever found yourself confused about a location or position value, it's usually because you're not sure what point it is measured relative to, or which direction the axes are pointing to. For example, let's say you are making a combat game, and you are trying to attach a sword to your player's right hand. You find a function in your favorite game engine that lets you attach objects, but you get confused about how to use it. After a little trial and error, you either get it working somehow or decide to follow a tutorial. But with a good understanding of coordinate systems, you can easily figure that out yourself. You'll know where the sword's position is being measured relative to, and which direction it's facing, making it much easier to get the attachment right. The same applies for UI. If you've ever tried moving a widget up and found that its Y position value is decreasing, it's because the origin point is on the top left corner and the vertical axis points down. But what matters is that understanding how coordinate systems work can remove any confusion you might have and can help you differentiate between local, world, screen, or UV coordinate spaces and understand how to convert between them easily. What we just described is the most common coordinate system used in video games, the Cartesian coordinate system, or in less fancier words, the rectangular coordinate system. There are other coordinate systems used in video games, like polar coordinates, but we will not focus on it since it's less frequently used. And the great resource you can learn about coordinate systems from is Chapter 1 from 3D Math Primer book, which you can read online for free from the link in the description. So, our player and enemies are now part of some world, and we know how to locate them. But if they are just standing still, that would make no game. We want them to move, jump, and push each other, and do a lot of actions that involve movement and directions. And that's where vectors are needed. A vector is simply a way to represent a direction and the magnitude. You can think of it like an arrow. The direction the arrow points to tells you where something is moving. The length of the arrow tells you how much it's moving. Why vectors matter is because they allow us to handle things like movement, aiming, physics, rendering, and even AI behaviors, which means they are used everywhere in games and game engines. If you have ever struggled to get an object to move correctly, it's probably because you weren't fully considering its movement, vector's direction, and magnitude. For example, let's say we want our player to move in its forward direction when we press W. If we pass in the wrong direction or magnitude, we might end up moving backwards or moving slower than we should be. A very important thing that can help you make sense of vectors is to understand the difference between a point and the vector, since they are usually represented by the same data type in game engines, which can cause some confusion. Our player's location is the position it starts movement from, and its velocity is the direction it will move and how far it will move. It can be thought of as a shift from its original location. But if we apply the same velocity vector to any other object at a different location, it will still be shifted by the same direction and magnitude, just from a different start location. That's because vectors will be the same no matter where they are located, and if they are used on their own, they would represent a shift from the world's origin. Understanding this distinction can allow us to use functions like getActorLocation or getActorForwardVector at the right context without confusion. Another useful thing to do with vectors is to separate their direction from their magnitude. For example, we might be making a racing game and we want to show the speed meter of our vehicle's velocity without caring about which direction it's moving. Knowing that its velocity's magnitude can be obtained through the Pythagorean theorem can be beneficial. Despite that, we don't need to remember how it's calculated and we can look it up when needed. And if we care only about the direction of a vector without its magnitude, we can do what's known as vector normalization, which divides the vector by its magnitude and returns a vector that points at the same direction but has a magnitude of 1, which is known as a unit vector. An example of a unit vector is our player's forward vector, which we used in the past example and has a magnitude of 1. And this allows us to scale it by any value we want. If we put what we just learned to a real-world example of doing a line trace to shoot a bullet from the weapon's muzzle, a common example that you've probably encountered many times while following a tutorial, then understanding how vectors work will make it clearer for you why we need a start location, for example. Because using a vector alone would mean our trace will start from the world's origin instead of the muzzle of the weapon as we want. And that we need to multiply our weapon's forward vector by some scalar range value, because the forward vector is a unit vector that has a magnitude of 1, so we need to scale it to go further. And that's the key to working with vectors. It is understanding what their different operations mean and can help us achieve, no matter what is the abstract math behind them, which will be mostly handled by the game engine. A couple of other very useful operations on vectors are subtraction of 2 points, which is commonly used to find the look-at vector from one point to another. For example, the direction for our enemy to look at our player. Then the dot product, which you will hear and use a lot when you want to know how similar two vectors are. For example, if you want to know if our enemy has line of sight to our player and can see it, we can use the dot product between our player's forward vector and its look at player vector that we can obtain from vector subtraction. And if the two vectors are normalized, this results in a value between -1 and 1, where 1 means our enemy is directly looking at our player, and -1 means it's looking in the opposite direction, and 0 means it's looking exactly sideways. Then we have the cross product, which is another useful operation between two vectors that allow us to get a third vector that is perpendicular to the first two vectors. They are heavily used in game engines for things like calculating surface normals and torque or angular velocity, and they are less frequently used in gameplay programming. But some common examples are that if we want to make our enemies miss the player when shooting, or if we want to make them strafe sideways around our player, we can get the cross product of the enemy's up vector and its look at player vector to get a third vector that points either to its left or right based on the order of operations. Most of these concepts are hard to grasp at the first go, especially because in school we were only taught about the abstract nature of them. We never learned the geometrical meaning behind them and what they represent visually. But it can be a lot easier to understand vectors and game math in general if we are able to visualize and understand the meaning behind them and where they can be applied. And that's where Brilliant, the sponsor of this video, comes in. Brilliant is an amazing educational platform where you learn by doing instead of consuming. They have thousands of interactive lessons in math, programming, data analysis, and AI. The lessons are filled with hands-on problem solving that lets you play with concepts. That's because all content on Brilliant is crafted by an award-winning team of teachers, researchers, and professionals from cool places like MIT, Caltech, Duke, Microsoft, Google, and more. And the best thing I like about it is that each lesson starts with the description of when and why you would need it, making it one of the most effective ways to learn any new concept. I've personally learned a lot through their math courses, especially the one on vectors. It was great for brushing up on my math fundamentals, as well as challenging myself with more advanced concepts and enhancing my visual and spatial problem-solving skills. So, whatever your starting point is, Brilliant is a great resource that will take you all the way from knowing nothing and having some fear of math like I had to reaching a very advanced and confident level. You can try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days by visiting brilliant.org/AmrMakesGames, which you'll find linked in the description below, or by scanning the QR code on the screen. And you'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. A huge thank you to Brilliant for sponsoring this video. So, just like coordinate systems help us describe positions, vectors help us describe directions, motions, and forces. And speaking of directions, since they are closely tied to angles, let's start talking about trigonometry. Trigonometry is this branch of math concerned with triangles, angles, and the functions of angles, like sine, cosine, and tangent. It might sound like one of those intimidating math subjects from school, but in game development, it's one of your best tools for dealing with angles, distances, and directions, things you'll use consistently when making games. And that's why trigonometry matters. Because just like vectors, trigonometry is everywhere in game development. Remember in our past example when we used forward vectors? These forward vectors were actually calculated under the hood using some trigonometry. If we are making a combat game and we want our characters to react based on the angle they got hit from, we use trigonometry to calculate the hit angle. And if we need to find the distance between our player and enemy, we can do that through the Pythagorean theorem, which we mentioned a little bit earlier, and that is an integral concept of trigonometry. Some important basics you need to keep in mind when working with trigonometry are how we can use the sine, cosine, and tangent functions to find a vector if we have some angle, and how we can use the inverse of those functions to find an angle if we have one or more vectors. For example, if we want to move an object in a certain direction at an angle theta, we can determine the x and y components of that direction or vector using cosine and sine the angle respectively. And the opposite is true. If we know the vector and we need an angle, for example, if we know the look at vector from our enemy to our player, and we want to determine the angle that makes the enemy face our player, we can use the inverse tangent function, or a tan 2, to achieve that. And if we have two vectors and we want to find the angle between them, then we can use the inverse cosine or arccosine function along with the dot product we discussed earlier. For example, if we know our enemy's forward vector and the look at vector from the enemy to our player, we can find the angle between them using inverse cosine their dot product, and thus determine what angle the enemy should rotate to face our player. I don't want to overwhelm you with the details. I know this might sound like a lot, but they are really simpler than they seem. What I want you to understand is that everything we have discussed so far heavily relates and builds on one another, and as you get more hands-on experience, these pieces will connect together and will make perfect sense for you. So, let's move on to something just as important: linear interpolation, or LIRP for short. LIRP is a way to smoothly transition between two values over time. In simple terms, LIRP takes two values and blends between them based on a percentage. A few places where you will find yourself using LIRP in game development are to make smooth movement. For example, if you want your camera to have some lag and smoothly move to follow the player instead of causing any jittering. Or for color transitions, if you are polishing your game and want your health bar to change its color based on the damage taken from green to red, LIRP lets you blend between colors. And also for animation blending, if you want to smoothly transition between two poses or animation sequences based on some value, LIRP makes it easy to achieve that. There is a nice in-depth video that explains LIRP by Simon Dev, which you'll find linked in the description along with the other resources. Now let's talk about matrices, another concept that sounds intimidating but is absolutely crucial in game development. A matrix is just a grid of numbers, typically used to perform transformations like translation, scaling, and rotation. For example, if we want to rotate an object in 3D space, we don't just change its x, y, and z values manually, we multiply its position by a rotation matrix. We also use translation matrices to move objects from one place to another, and scaling matrices to make objects bigger or smaller. And since we have introduced coordinate spaces at the start of this video, well, matrices are what we use to transform vectors from one coordinate space to another. For example, from local to world and vice versa. And they are able to do this very efficiently. The important thing to take away here is that matrices are what make transformations happen behind the scenes. Anytime you move, scale, or rotate an object in Unreal Engine or any game engine, you are indirectly working with matrices, whether you realize it or not. Chapter 4 of 3D Math Primer book is a great resource that can introduce you to matrices and their different operations in a beginner-friendly way. Everything we have talked about so far, coordinate systems, vectors, trigonometry, interpolation, and matrices. These are the core math tools that you'll use in almost every game you work on. These topics make up 80% of the math you'll actually use, and you can learn them in 20% of the time compared to studying many other concepts out there. This means that if you focus on these core topics first, you'll be able to start building and problem solving way faster instead of getting lost in advanced math concepts you might not even need. These other math concepts can definitely be useful, but you don't need to focus on them right now at least, as you can do just fine by knowing how to use them rather than how they work or how you can write them by your own. They are the kind of things you can pick up as needed, depending on the game you're working on and if you are making your own game engine or customizing an existing game engine. But for your interest, here's a super quick rundown on some of them.
They turn, but which way are they supposed to go?
Quaternions are an alternative way to represent rotations than matrices or Euler angles. They allow us to avoid problems like gimbal lock, where an axis gets stuck. And if you're working in 3D and need smooth rotations, this is when quaternions can become useful. Probability and statistics are used for randomness. For example, generating random loot drops, critical hit chances, or randomizing enemy AI behavior. That's where probability and statistics come in. If you're making a roguelike, a card game, or anything with procedural generation, you might want to learn more about how probability distributions work. Calculus is about understanding how things change over time, which makes it super useful for physics simulations. If you are working with things like acceleration, velocity, or dynamic objects responding to forces, or making a physics-based character controller, then a basic understanding of derivatives and integrals is a must. Curves are mainly used for smooth paths and animations. If you want an object to follow the smooth path, like a camera moving along a track or a character following a curved trajectory, then you will use Bezier curves or splines a lot. Geometrical tests are part of any game with physics or hit detection. It's what allows us to check if two objects intersect, whether it's a bullet hitting an enemy, a player colliding with a wall, or a ray cast detecting a target. Understanding intersection tests like ray plane and ray sphere tests can help, but they are not necessary unless you're making your own physics or collision engine. The bottom line is, don't get overwhelmed by all these extra topics. The most important thing is to start learning using the essential topics we have covered. As you work on different projects, you will run naturally into situations where you need more advanced math, and that's the best time to learn it. Just know that game math is not about memorizing formulas like it was in school. It's about understanding why you need these tools and how to use them to solve problems that actually exist in your game. And now that you know what math is needed, make sure that you learn it effectively. And please, don't repeat my mistake of spending more than 6 months passively learning from a math book only to find out that I was fooling myself. You can learn more about this story and about how I changed my math learning habits and learned how to learn more effectively from this video. As always, thank you for making it to the end of this video and for everyone supporting this content. This was Amr, and I shall see you in the next one.